Okay guys, hey, how's it going? Hopefully everything's going well for the sub today, and I hope that you guys are doing a great job. At least that's what I expect. So, if you're not, change it, so that way you have a great rest of the day. Okay, so today what your task is while you're working is you're going to be in your groups, and today you're going to get started on your science fair project, and you're going to start working on, first you should be watching this video, and nobody else should be working on the computer. You should all be watching this video. Then after you've finished watching this video, then what you're going to do is you're going to go to Science Classroom and you're going to open up your assignments. So I've got 6 assignments labeled right here, and only one of them belongs to you. Notice how I have you guys labeled as your group, and remember that there's 2 groups for each project, and I've put your names next to those groups, okay? And as of right now, I haven't published these groups yet, so on my screen it looks a little different. But when you open up your assignment, you're going to see the assignment, the question that's kind of guiding you, obviously the due date, that's not till the end of the month, and if we need to change it, we will. And then you have a slides project that I have shared with you, and I've shared it with this assignment, so that way all of us can be looking at this project together. And so what I want you guys to do first is you have this, locate your assignment. And then the other thing is that you all should have your logbook. And today you're going to get started on working on several of the pieces of the logbook in your group, okay? Now the logbook, this first area here is what is the title or the question you want to solve for your project, okay? This is going to be on your presentation. Here it says the final board, but we're not going to use the science fair boards. We're going to be making our slides presentations, okay? The question for everyone is actually listed right below your group name in your assignment, okay? So the first thing that I want you guys to do is for each group, when you open up your slides project, I want you guys to record your title here on the very first page, and then also your group members' names need to be here, okay? So that's the first thing that I need you to do. Okay, you might want to assign somebody to do that or divide it up, however you guys choose to do that, okay? The next thing that I need you guys to do then, if you'll look at your project book, is your variables. And this is going to take a couple minutes to talk about because I'm going to need to discuss a couple things for each group, okay? So for your variables, okay, it says the independent variable is the only part of the experiment that is changed. Okay, so first let's talk about our ice cream group. Okay, in the ice cream group, let me close your eye here. So ice cream groups, group 1 and 2. You guys have the question, which type of bowl keeps the ice cream solid longest? Okay, and so the independent variable is the part that you're changing. Well, obviously you want to find out which bowl is going to keep it solid the longest. That's what you're changing, is the type of bowl. Everything else stays the same. Okay, and so everything else that's kept the same are your controls. Then for your dependent variable those are the things that it's kind of the part of the experiments that are the results from changing the independent variable. So my question for my ice cream friends are, first of all, what are you going to keep the same in your experiment? So do some brainstorming in your group, come up with a few things that you believe you're going to keep the same, and then also talk about what do you expect to find in the results. So basically, how do you know which bowl keeps it the same? What are you going to be looking for? And that is your dependent variable. How are you going to know that the ice cream has melted? Okay, now let's go to our next group, okay, our bacteria friends. Okay, so for your question is, what area grows the most bacteria? Okay, what I want you guys to do for your project, for my bacteria friends, excuse me, for my bacteria friends, you guys want to know, obviously, your amount of bacteria. That's your independent variable, okay? You want to know, but you also, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. Scratch that. For my bacteria friends, you want to know which area grows the most bacteria. So you're going to change, your independent variable is where you're testing. So your group, I want you to choose 2 different locations in our school that you want to compare the amount of bacteria grown. And so think of 2 different places in our school. Come up with a group decision. If you're having a hard time making a group decision, figure out a fair way to do that. But in your group, come up with a fair way that you can figure out 2 different places that have, that obviously is going to have bacteria, so you can compare the amounts. Okay, so that is going to be your independent variable, which area of the school. Okay, now for your dependent variable, that's going to be, you know, how much bacteria is in each place. Okay, now then for your controls, this one's a little trickier because this one is kind of, this is a kit you guys will be working with, and so I'll explain more about this one when I get back. So I want you guys to actually leave the controls, I want you to leave the control box alone, okay? And then for our last group, let's go here to my baking soda groups, okay? So if you're one of my baking soda friends, baking soda vinegar group, your question is which combination of baking soda and vinegar creates the largest reaction, okay? So when baking soda and vinegar get mixed up in the proper amounts or in certain amounts, they create a reaction where it fizzes up and bubbles up, and a lot of times goes over top of the glass, okay, the container that it's in. And so what we're going to do is we're going to try and figure out, well, if we have a certain amount, if we have several different selections of vinegar amounts and baking soda amounts and we combine them, which one of those amounts is going to create the biggest reaction, okay? So what I want you guys to do on your variables, so what's your independent variable? That's the part that's changed. Well, are you going to change the amount of baking soda that you use, or are you going to change the amount of vinegar that you use? That's something I want you guys to decide in your group if you want to change vinegar or baking soda. Come up with a decision and decide that together, okay? Then your dependent variable is the amount of the reaction, and we'll even talk about that more later and how we'll measure the amount of the reaction. And then the control is what you're going to keep the same. So if your independent variable is going to be vinegar, then baking soda is going to be a control. If your independent variable is going to be baking soda, then vinegar is going to be your control. And the size of the cup that you keep it in and things like that. Okay? All right, so we've talked about variables for each group. If you're still confused about it, go back, rewatch it again. But even if you're still confused, we'll talk about it when we get back. And I'll try and get into your slides presentations and write some notes to you guys too while you're working. Okay? The next thing is, let's go back now. Okay, so on your presentations, or I'm sorry, in your packets, the next thing is your hypothesis. Okay? Now your hypothesis is based on what you thought, or kind of like what kind of things you guys discussed as your group. What do you think will happen? Okay, so let's go back again to our different groups. My baking soda friends, what do you think is going to create the biggest reaction? Okay, do you think it's going to be the baking soda or the vinegar? How much of each? Okay, and so you'll put it in the form of an if-then statement. Okay, then the next thing is, so let's go to my bacteria group. What I want you guys to decide is, which location do you think is going to grow the most bacteria? Okay, some places are going to be obvious, but you know what? Sometimes we might be surprised by certain areas. So kind of look at, you know, be creative. You know, think about, you know, a lot of people expect, oh, maybe drinking fountains or maybe toilet seats and things like that. But you know what? Maybe pick out things that people normally touch but they normally think are clean. You never know. So think about some of those things, okay? I want you to kind of step outside the box when you're thinking about bacteria and where it's located, okay? The next thing, or actually let me go to my last group. So for my ice cream group, when you're making your hypothesis, I want you to think about which bowl do you think. I want you to think about the types of bowls that we might use to put ice cream in, guys. And I want you to decide, as a group, which one you think might be your hypothesis. And you know what? If you come up with a different hypothesis for every single group member, this goes out to everybody. If all group members come up with a different hypothesis, then the way that we'll handle this is on your presentation. Excuse me. On your presentation, when you create your hypothesis slide, well then each group member will list their hypothesis, you know. So for instance, Emmy thinks that blank will happen. Dylan thinks that this will happen. So it's okay if not everybody wants the same hypothesis, and that's all right, okay? Let's go back now to our hypothesis. So I want you to work on your hypothesis today. If you have a chance to, go ahead and type it up in your slides presentation. That kind of goes for your variables too. If you want to start preparing your variables slide, go ahead and do that. And if you want to prepare your hypothesis slide, go ahead and do that. Okay, now the last thing, if you have time, and this will probably carry you over into tomorrow, this is going to be your introduction slide. And this is like, I want you to think about background research, what you're going to do to find information about your topic. Okay, it says your introduction must include background information and research on your topic, which also means that you need to cite those resources. So if you find a website with some information, you're going to need to cite that. Okay. And then in another paragraph, you also need to include your reason for doing the project and what you hope to learn. Okay, so you could have several slides of background information. Then you're also going to need a slide for the reason why you're doing the project, and the other one is with another slide for what you hope to learn. Okay, so let's talk about each group specifically. Okay, let's close this out and go back here. All right, so baking soda vinegar friends. Okay, for you guys, my baking soda and vinegar friends, maybe look up information about what's vinegar made out of, what's baking soda made out of. When they combine with other things, what causes certain reactions. Those might be some things you could look up or some research. Okay, don't forget to cite your sources. And then talk about your reason for the project and what you kind of hope to learn. Okay, let's go to my bacteria group. You guys, okay, well, maybe you can do some background information on what is bacteria, what causes bacteria to grow, what causes people to get bacteria on their hands, and then what does that bacteria do? Okay, how many different types of bacteria are there? Or what are the most popular types of bacteria? That might be some background research you can look up. Then also your reasoning and what you hope to learn. Okay, the next thing so my next group, ice cream group. Okay, so your background information might include, what is it that keeps ice cream in a solid state? We know that it's freezing, but are there other things in ice cream that keep it in a solid state? What are the different types of bowls made out of? If you choose paper or plastic or foam or, china, what is it that what is it about those materials that insulate? So maybe you can look up insulators and what is the qualities of insulators that keep things frozen. Okay, so that might be some of your background research and also your reasoning for doing the project, and then you'll also want to include what you hope to learn. Okay, so that was a very, very quick 12-minute or so, we're encroaching 13 minutes here, video about what you guys need to do today. And that's a lot of information. The great thing about a video is that you can go back and replay certain parts of the video. You guys can go back and take a look. Don't forget your references. So as you're typing up your slides, you can create new slides for each one of these parts. You can create multiple slides. You're probably going to need multiple slides for your background. You're probably maybe you need multiple slides for your hypothesis. It's up to you. Okay? Don't forget, if there's something that's confusing you and you don't understand, today, as you're talking over, you're like, oh, we need to ask Mrs. Stegman that. You can type that information down here, because then while, tonight after my conference, or you know what? You never know. Maybe during the conference I'll be checking in on you guys. If you type these questions here, I might be able to answer them because I have shared them with you. I made these presentations, so I have access to them as well. Okay? So take your time, all of you guys, now that you've watched the video, now you'll be able to get your own Chromebooks and kind of talk it over with your group about who's going to do what are you going to start on, and kind of divide up the parts of the project evenly, so that way everybody's being active today. Okay, we don't want anybody sitting there waiting for something to do. Okay, if you're somebody that's sitting there at some point waiting for something to do, ask, hey, what can I do next? Okay, be proactive and ask somebody in your group what you can do next. Okay, so good luck. Again, be good for the sub, and I'll see you when I get back. Okay, all right, we'll see you guys.